Darth Revan saved the Republic, nearly destroyed it, and became something the galaxy had never seen before. This is how one man conquered the galaxy twice, and why his story changed everything. But the part most fans never hear is how his story didn't end even after death. To understand all of that, we must go back to exactly 3994 BBY, when a child who would become Revan was born. The Rising Star, a legend story. The boy showed incredible force powers from an early age, so he was taken to the Jedi Temple and quickly proved himself as something special. Unlike other students who learned from one or two teachers, Revan studied under many different masters. His curiosity regularly led to dangerous questions, but masters like Dorak saw his rare potential and watched his quick rise through the ranks. But it was his friendship with a fellow student named Alec that would shape both their futures in ways neither could imagine. Revan and Alec were best friends who balanced each other perfectly. Where Alec was hot-headed and direct, always ready to act, Revan was thoughtful and inspiring, able to lead others with his words alone. Even as students, the other young Jedi looked to Revan as their leader, drawn to his natural charm and deep understanding of the Force. His teachers saw in him the potential to become one of the greatest Jedi who ever lived. They had no idea how right they were. Master Vandar believed Revan would become a hero of the Order, while Master Vrook warned that his thirst for knowledge could lead him down dangerous paths. But even Vrook couldn't deny Revan's amazing abilities or the respect he earned from his fellow students. As he grew stronger in the Force, Revan became fascinated by Force bonds and rare Force powers that most Jedi thought were too dangerous to study. So he started studying ancient methods while diving into forbidden books with an intensity that both impressed and worried his masters. But in 3976 BBY, everything changed when the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders began their brutal invasion. The Mandalorians swept through Republic space with terrifying efficiency, conquering world after world as their war machine crushed everything in its path. Civilians died by the millions as entire sectors burned and whole species faced extinction, and the Jedi Council did nothing to stop the slaughter. The Council claimed they sensed a bigger threat behind the Mandalorians, some hidden enemy pulling the strings from the shadows. They urged patience, meditation, and trust in the Force, advice that felt empty to young Jedi watching innocent people die. Revan couldn't stand it anymore and decided to take action. He began speaking out against the Council's inaction, arguing that the Jedi had a sacred duty to protect the innocent from harm. His natural charm and passionate beliefs drew followers. First Alec, then dozens of other young knights who shared his frustration. These rebel Jedi became known as the Revanchists, named after their charismatic leader. But the Council remained inactive and grew increasingly unhappy about Revan's movement. The Mask of Justice. Despite the Council's warnings, Revan continued investigating Mandalorian activities, determined to uncover the truth behind their brutal war. This led him to Cathar, home world of the feline humanoid species. What he found there would plant the first seeds of darkness. Hidden in the ruins, Revan discovered a Mandalorian mask that called to him through the Force. The moment he touched it, everything changed. The Force showed him a terrible vision, the complete genocide of the Cathar people years earlier. He watched helplessly as Mandalorian forces herded thousands of innocent Cathar families to the ocean's edge for execution. He saw families torn apart, children crying for parents who would never answer, and brave warriors fighting desperately to protect the innocent. When one brave Mandalorian warrior tried to stop the slaughter, she was executed by Cassus Fett. The leadership showed no mercy for dissent. Holding the fallen warrior's mask, Revan made a vow that would define him. He would take up her cause and wear the mask until the Mandalorians were defeated completely. In that moment, the young Jedi became Revan. Even the Council couldn't ignore the overwhelming evidence of genocide. Grudgingly, they allowed Revan and his followers to join the war as a Republic Mercy Corps. What followed was a masterclass in military strategy and the beginning of Revan's transformation. Revan proved to be a tactical genius, developing strategies that turned Mandalorian strengths against them. Victory after victory followed, but each triumph came at a cost. War changes everyone, even heroes. As the conflict dragged on, Revan began adopting his enemy's ruthless methods to achieve victory at any cost. Supreme Chancellor Tol Kressa appointed him Supreme Commander, giving him unprecedented power. the greatest tragedy was yet to come, beyond the edge of known space where an ancient evil waited. The price of victory. By 3960 BBY, Revan faced a terrible choice that would change everything he thought he knew about war, victory, and the price of peace. The war was stuck despite years of fighting. Mandalore the Ultimate commanded forces that seemed impossible to defeat through normal means, their warrior culture making them nearly unbreakable. The Republic was bleeding resources and lives, while the Mandalorians grew stronger with each passing day. So Revan built something never seen before: the Mass Shadow Generator, a super weapon that generated a gravity well so intense it pulverized both fleets and tore Malachor V's surface apart within minutes. The device was designed by Bao-Dur, a Zabrak engineer who would later regret his creation. Revan's plan was simple but devastating: lure the Mandalorians to Malachor V, activate the weapon, and end the war in one catastrophic blow. He placed his most trusted general, Meteoric Surik, in command of half the Republic fleet with a deadly mission: serve as bait to draw the Mandalorians into their final trap. Many of the Jedi and soldiers assigned to this mission were those who had questioned Revan's increasingly brutal methods, and some believe this wasn't a coincidence. Revan may have seen this as the perfect opportunity to eliminate dissent while achieving victory. The battle was everything Revan had planned, as massive fleets clashed in orbit around Malachor V. Mandalore himself challenged Revan to single combat aboard his flagship in a duel that would decide the fate of the galaxy. These two legendary warriors fought with everything they had, Revan's lightsaber meeting Mandalore's sword in an epic battle. Despite Mandalore's incredible skill, Revan emerged victorious, but Mandalore's final words revealed a shocking truth. The Mandalorians weren't acting alone. There was a greater threat, an ancient enemy controlling events from the shadows. Then, the Mass Shadow Generator activated, creating a gravity well so powerful that hundreds of ships from both sides were crushed into Malachor V's surface as thousands died in seconds. The planet itself cracked to its core, becoming a wound in the Force that would never heal, while Meteoric Surik was cut off from the Force entirely. The war was over, and the Mandalorians surrendered completely. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Revan had won, but at the price of his own soul. And soon, he would discover that this victory was exactly what his true enemy had wanted all along. Into the darkness. Haunted by Mandalore's dying words that a hidden Sith Lord had manipulated the entire war, Revan couldn't rest while the Republic celebrated its victory. Convinced something greater lurked beyond known space, he and Malak followed the scattered clues into the unknown regions. The two friends had changed during the long years of fighting. Malak had become more violent and unpredictable, while Revan had grown colder and more distant. Yet they stayed together and traveled to the frozen world of Rekiad, pursuing Mandalore's final clue, a tomb buried beneath the ice. Deep inside lay the resting place of Darth Dramath II, and a datacron that confirmed their worst fears. An ancient Sith empire still existed somewhere in the unknown regions. The enemy they thought defeated had merely been waiting, gathering strength in the darkness. The datacron pointed them toward Nathema, a world that appeared normal on star charts but held a horror beyond imagination. When they landed, they immediately felt something was terribly wrong. The Force itself was absent from this place. Walking across Nathema was like stepping into a void where life had never existed. No plants, no animals, no insects. Nothing at all remained. For two Jedi who had spent their lives feeling the Force flowing through everything, the sensation was like suddenly going deaf and blind. They uncovered the story of what had happened here. In 4999 BBY, a Sith Lord named Vitiate had convinced thousands of Sith to participate in a massive ritual that consumed all life on Nathema to grant him immortality and incredible power. Every living thing on an entire planet had died to feed one man's hunger for eternal life. From Nathema, the trail led them to Dromund Kaas, capital of the reconstituted Sith Empire, where Lord Vitiate now ruled as the immortal Sith Emperor. Disguising themselves as mercenaries, they spent months gathering intelligence. What they learned terrified them. The Emperor commanded millions of soldiers, thousands of Sith warriors, and vast fleets that rivaled the entire Republic Navy in size. Any reasonable person would have returned to warn the Republic, but Revan and Malak were no longer reasonable men. They convinced themselves that they could handle the Sith Emperor alone. When they finally confronted him in his throne room, he was waiting for them. But instead of the epic lightsaber battle they expected, something far worse happened. The Emperor didn't even stand up. With casual ease, he reached into their minds and broke them completely. The Emperor gave them new names, Darth Revan and Darth Malak, and sent them back to Republic space with a mission: find the ancient Starforge and prepare for his invasion. But the Emperor had made one critical mistake. He underestimated their strength of will, and that mistake would come back to haunt him. The Dark Lord's reign. Something incredible happened that had never occurred in galactic history. Servants of the Sith Emperor broke free from his mental control for the first time ever. Revan and Malak's personalities were twisted to the dark side, but their wills remained their own, and they had plans the Emperor never saw coming. Using the Republic forces that had followed them into the unknown regions, Revan created a completely new kind of Sith Empire. Unlike previous Sith who relied on ancient bloodlines, he built a system where ability mattered more than heritage. The best fighters rose to the top, regardless of where they came from. The Starforge became the heart of his empire. This ancient station drew stellar energy to mass-produce warships, rolling out fresh armadas in a matter of weeks. As a military commander, Darth Revan was terrifyingly effective, but his strategy was different. He didn't want to destroy the Republic, but conquer it. Malak began to resent his master, believing Revan was too soft. Their philosophical differences erupted into violence during a lightsaber duel aboard Revan's flagship, a fight that ended with Malak's jaw being destroyed, leaving him scarred and bitter. From that moment, their friendship was dead. The war raged for years. The Sith Republic seemed unstoppable as they conquered world after world. The Republic military was in chaos, the Jedi Order was falling apart, and morale was non-existent. Finally, the Jedi Council set a desperate trap. They sent a small Republic fleet as bait, while a strike team led by Bastila Shan infiltrated Revan's flagship to capture the Dark Lord. The plan worked too well. As Revan battled the Jedi on his command bridge, Malak saw his chance. He ordered his own ship to fire on his master's vessel, betraying Revan at the worst possible moment. The explosions left Revan critically wounded, his body broken and his mind shattered. But Bastila Shan made a choice that would change everything. Redemption's price. Instead of letting Revan die, Bastila Shan saved his life with the Force, pouring her own life energy into his broken body. In doing so, she formed a powerful Force bond between them, a connection that would prove crucial to everything that followed. The Jedi Council faced a problem they had never dealt with before. They had captured the Dark Lord of the Sith himself, but he was barely alive and might never recover. His body was healing, but his mind remained shattered. Master Vrook wanted him executed immediately. The risk was too great. Others argued for imprisonment on a secure world. But Masters Vandar and Zar proposed something radical. They would wipe Revan's memory completely and give him a new identity. It was experimental, dangerous, and ethically questionable, but it offered hope. It was a violation of everything the Jedi claimed to believe about free will and redemption. The Council debated for hours, knowing their decision would set a precedent for the Order, but with the galaxy burning around them, they chose the practical path over their principles. Using techniques that bordered on the forbidden, they erased everything that made Revan who he was, his memories, his personality, even his knowledge of the Force. They replaced it with the artificial personality of a loyal Republic soldier, complete with false memories that felt completely real. When he awoke on the medical frigate, the most powerful Sith Lord in history believed himself to be a common trooper. The Council's plan was simple: use Bastila's bond with Revan to slowly draw out his buried memories of the Starforge's location, then destroy it and end the war. They had no idea how wrong things would go. Everything went sideways when Malak attacked the Endar Spire above the planet Taurus, hunting for Bastila because her battle meditation was the key to Republic resistance. Her ability to strengthen allies and weaken enemies through the Force made her the most valuable Jedi alive. During the chaotic battle, Revan escaped in a pod with Republic pilot Carth Onasi. Bastila's pod crashed elsewhere on the planet's surface, and she was captured by the Black Vulcar swoop gang. Without her battle meditation, the Republic fleet was forced to retreat. What followed was an adventure that would slowly awaken the hero buried within the former Dark Lord. As Revan fought to rescue Bastila from the criminal underworld of Taris, something incredible happened. Given a blank slate, the man who had conquered half the galaxy consistently chose to be a protector of the innocent. When faced with choosing between personal gain and helping others, he chose compassion. When offered power at the cost of others' suffering, he refused. The quest for redemption. The rescue from Taris was just the beginning. After Malak destroyed the planet's surface in a fit of rage, killing millions to prevent Bastila's escape, Revan was taken to the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine, where he was retrained as a Padawan at an incredible pace. His natural connection to the Force was undeniable, and Master Zar Lestin was amazed at how quickly Revan relearned abilities that should have taken years to master. Even without his memories, muscle memory and instinct guided him through complex Force techniques. His mission? Find 5 star maps created by the ancient Rakata that would lead to the Star Forge. Only by destroying his own ultimate weapon could the Republic hope to survive the Sith attack. The quest took him across 5 worlds, each one a test of his character and resolve that would reveal who he truly was beneath the surface. On Tatooine, he encountered the Sand People and chose diplomacy over violence, using the protocol droid HK-47 to negotiate a peaceful solution that ended raids on moisture farmers. On Kashyyyk, he helped the Wookiee Zalbar reclaim his honor and overthrow his corrupt brother instead of supporting the easier path of working with slavers. On Manaan, he protected the ocean world's ecosystem rather than exploiting it for military advantage. On Korriban, he infiltrated the Sith Academy and turned Sith teachings against themselves, convincing fallen Jedi to abandon the dark side. Each choice revealed a pattern. Given the freedom to decide, Revan consistently chose compassion over conquest, justice over convenience, and light over darkness. Meanwhile, his bond with Bastila deepened as what had begun as a strategic alliance slowly became something more. Despite the Jedi Code's restrictions on attachment, the two fell in love, and their connection gave them strength in the Force, but also made them vulnerable. Revan also gathered an unlikely crew of allies who would become some of the most loyal friends he'd ever known. Carth Onasi, a Republic pilot haunted by his mentor's betrayal. Mission Vao, a teenage Twi'lek with street smarts and unwavering loyalty. Zalbar, a Wookiee warrior bound by a life debt. Juhani, a fallen Cathar Jedi whom Revan personally saved from the dark side. Jolee Bindo, an eccentric hermit who understood the Force in the ways the Council never taught. Each companion chose to follow Revan not because of his authority or power, but because of his character. They saw someone worth believing in. But the past has a way of catching up with even the most carefully buried secrets. Admiral Saul Karath, Carth's former mentor who had defected to the Sith, captured the Ebon Hawk using an interdictor cruiser. In the torture chambers of the massive warship Leviathan, Karath began systematically breaking down Revan's companions to get to Bastila. The revelation came during Karath's dying moments. Malak confronted his former master face to face for the first time since his betrayal, revealing that Revan had once been the Dark Lord, and that Malak had taken his place. The revelation shattered everything Revan thought he knew about himself. How could he face his companions, knowing he was responsible for so much death and suffering? How could he trust himself not to fall again? The dark truth revealed. Learning that he had once been Darth Revan devastated the redeemed Jedi more than any physical wound ever could. The knowledge that he had been responsible for the very war tearing the galaxy apart, that he had corrupted Jedi and killed innocents, that his own creations were now being used against the Republic. It was almost too much to bear. But his friends surprised him with their loyalty and understanding that went beyond anything he could have expected from people he had wronged so deeply. Mission Vao simply said she trusted the person she'd traveled with, not the Dark Lord from history. She knew who he really was. Jolee Bindo revealed he'd known all along and still chose to follow him without hesitation. The old Jedi believed the Force doesn't make mistakes. If Revan were meant to stay dark, he would have. Even Carth Onasi, whose homeworld of Telos had been bombed by Revan's forces during the war, eventually found it in himself to forgive. It wasn't easy. Carth struggled with anger and betrayal, the same emotions that had driven him since his wife's death. But in the end, he chose to judge Revan by his actions as the man he traveled with, not the Sith Lord he'd once been. They saw something the Jedi Council had missed, Revan's capacity for genuine change and growth. The greater tragedy was Bastila's sacrifice during their escape from the Leviathan, when she remained behind and sealed herself on the wrong side of a blast door to save Revan from Malak's trap. Subjected to days of torture and the seductive whispers of the dark side, the woman who had saved Revan fell to the very darkness she had helped him escape. When Revan finally found her again on Lahan, Bastila had become everything she once fought against. Crimson lightsaber in hand, Sith robes replacing her Jedi garments, she offered him a choice that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Bastila urged him to reclaim his power as a Sith Lord. They could rule the galaxy together, bringing order to chaos and strength to the weak. The Jedi Council had used him, manipulated him, violated his very mind. For a moment, the galaxy's fate hung in the balance as all of Revan's power, all of his knowledge, everything that had made him the most feared Sith Lord in history, called to him. The dark side offered him everything he had lost and more: unlimited power, revenge against those who had wronged him, and the chance to reshape the galaxy according to his will. But love proved stronger than fear. Revan refused the dark side's call and chose to save the woman he loved instead of claiming his former power. Through their force bond, the same connection that had redeemed him, he reached out to Bastila with compassion instead of conquest, telling her that even the darkest soul could be redeemed, just as he had been. Their love was stronger than any darkness. The declaration that followed broke through years of Sith conditioning and brought Bastila back to the light, proving that connection could heal even the deepest wounds. The Final Duel. The confrontation between Revan and Malak took place in the heart of the Starforge itself, where among the weapons of infinite destruction Revan had created during his time as a Sith Lord, master and apprentice would settle their conflict once and for all. But this battle would reveal something about Revan that even he didn't know, something that would send him on a journey far more dangerous than anything he had faced before. The Starforge was more than just a factory. It was a monument to the dark side's power and corruption that fed on the emotions of those who used it. Drawing energy from the nearby star, it could produce entire fleets in days, but it also consumed the dark feelings of anyone who commanded its power. Malak had been eaten alive by its influence, becoming more machine than man in his quest for power. Malak had learned from their previous encounters and prepared accordingly for this final showdown. Using technology salvaged from the Starforge, he had trapped the life forces of Jedi captured during his assault on the Dantooine Enclave in special machines throughout the station. Whenever Revan wounded him, Malak could drain their energy to restore himself, turning their sacrifice into fuel for his own survival. It was a twisted form of the very compassion that defined the Jedi. Their willingness to sacrifice for others turned into a weapon against them. Each time Malak healed himself, another Jedi spirit was consumed, their final moments spent empowering the very evil they had died fighting. But Revan was no longer the same person who had built this place, and he had learned the value of strategy over brute force, wisdom over raw power. Instead of trying to match Malak's strength with strength, he used his superior tactical thinking to turn the situation to his advantage. One by one, he destroyed the machinery holding the captured Jedi, freeing their spirits from torment while cutting off Malak's power source. It was dangerous work. Each machine was heavily guarded, and Malak fought desperately to prevent their destruction. Malak accused his former master of weakness, claiming he could have infinite power but chose to limit himself. Revan responded that power without purpose was meaningless, something he had learned through painful experience. When the last machine was destroyed, it came down to what it had always been. Two men that had once been the closest of friends, now separated by choices that could never be undone. The duel was epic in scope, but intimate in meaning, with every clash of lightsabers carrying the weight of their shared history. Every force push and pull reflected the different paths they had chosen. Malak seeking control through fear, Revan finding strength through connection with others. They fought across multiple levels of the Starforge's command center. While Malak's raw power was incredible, enhanced by years of drawing on the dark side, Revan's technique and tactical awareness gave him the edge he needed. In the end, wisdom defeated power, and Malak fell, mortally wounded by a lightsaber strike that finally broke through his defenses. As he lay dying, the anger and hatred that had kept him going for so long began to fade, revealing glimpses of the young Jedi he had once been. With his final breath, Malak admitted that he alone was responsible for his fate and acknowledged that ruling the galaxy was never meant to be his destiny. Revan apologized for starting him on this dark path, but reminded him that he had chosen to continue down it. With Malak's death, the immediate threat was over, but Revan's victory came with a terrible realization. Fragments of his memory were returning, and with them, knowledge of a threat far greater than anything the Republic had ever faced. The Sith Emperor was still out there, and Revan remembered exactly what he was planning to do. What he left behind. With Malak's death and the Starforge's destruction, the Jedi Civil War was over, and the massive space station that had threatened to tip the balance of power forever was reduced to debris orbiting Lahan's star. The Republic had survived, and Revan was hailed as its savior. He received the Cross of Glory, the Republic's highest honor, from Admiral Forn Dodonna herself. Master Vandar proclaimed him the Prodigal Knight, a Jedi who had strayed from the path but found his way back to the light. But Revan's greatest victory was personal when he and Bastila were married in a simple ceremony that defied Jedi tradition completely. They believed that their love made them stronger rather than weaker, that their emotional bond was a source of light rather than darkness. For a brief time, they found peace in a modest apartment on Coruscant where Revan attempted to share his new understanding of the Force with the Jedi Council. His belief was that positive emotions could strengthen one's connection to the light side, rather than leading to corruption as the Jedi had always taught. The Council rejected his teachings completely. Several masters argued for his banishment from the Order, fearing that his philosophy would lead other Jedi astray and destroy everything they had built over thousands of years. Only his status as a war hero prevented more extreme measures from being taken against him. A compromise was reached. Revan and Bastila could remain as official Jedi and keep their marriage, but Revan was forbidden from spreading his beliefs to other members of the Order. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but Revan decided it wasn't a battle worth fighting at that moment. That peace couldn't last forever, and 3 years after the war's end, Revan began experiencing vivid nightmares of a storm-covered world and an overwhelming presence of evil in the unknown regions. The memories of his time as a Sith were returning gradually, and with them came knowledge of threats the Republic wasn't prepared to face. The nightmares were incredibly detailed. He saw a world perpetually covered in lightning, felt an ancient evil that made even the Starforge's dark influence seem weak by comparison. Something was coming, something that made his own fall to the dark side seem insignificant, and it was getting stronger every day. When Bastila told him she was pregnant with their son, Revan faced an impossible choice that would define the rest of his life: stay with his growing family and live in happiness, knowing that future generations would pay the price for his inaction, or venture into the unknown to face a threat that might not emerge for decades or even centuries. The decision tore him apart because he wanted nothing more than to hold his child, to teach his son about the Force, to grow old with the woman he loved. But the visions were getting stronger, and he could feel the dark presence in the unknown regions growing more active with each passing day. In his final conversation with Bastila before leaving everything behind, Revan explained that he wasn't doing this for the Republic, or for her, or for even himself. He was doing it for their child and future generations. It was the choice of a true hero, sacrificing personal happiness for the greater good, even when that good might never be recognized or appreciated by anyone. Revan departed for the unknown regions alone, leaving behind his pregnant wife and the son he would never know. Bastila named their child Vanner, an anagram of his father's chosen name, and every night she dreamed of her husband, sensing through their bond that he was still alive but in terrible danger. The Republic celebrated peace, while its greatest hero walked into darkness to face an enemy that no one else even knew existed. But Revan's journey into the unknown regions would lead him to question everything he thought he knew about the Force. The Emperor's Prisoner. Revan's quest led him back to Nathema, the lifeless world where the Sith Emperor had first gained his terrible power. But this time, the Emperor was ready for him and had set a trap. Using Lord Scourge and Darth Nihilus as his helpers, Revan was taken to a secret prison called Maelstrom Prison in the heart of the Maelstrom Nebula, hung in a specially made chamber that kept him alive but helpless. For 300 years, he stayed between life and death, while being tortured by the Dreadmasters who loved breaking strong minds. But even in prison, Revan's will stayed strong despite centuries of pain that would have destroyed weaker people. The Emperor tried to steal Revan's knowledge of the Republic and the Force, but Revan fought back with everything he had, protecting the secrets that could doom billions. The Force ghost of Mitra Surik, his former general from the Mandalorian Wars, stayed by his side through the centuries of prison time and became the only thing that kept him sane. Her presence reminded him of who he had been before the darkness took over everything around him. Through their connection, Revan was able to change the Emperor's actions in small ways that the immortal Sith Lord never even knew were happening. When the Sith Empire finally attacked the Republic in 3681 BBY, starting with the Great Galactic War, Revan's influence made the Emperor want a fake peace rather than the total conquest that would have left the galaxy in ruins. The Treaty of Coruscant that ended the war in 3653 BBY was partly Revan's doing. His mental influence convinced the Emperor to accept a tie rather than continue the costly fighting that was draining both sides. For just over a decade, this uneasy Cold War continued, giving the Republic time to rebuild their forces and prepare for what might come next. But the torture hurt even Revan's incredible willpower. The constant suffering forced him to split his awareness from the pain, creating a divide that would have terrible results later. Part of him pulled back into pure focus on the Force, while another part lived through the suffering and slowly filled with hatred for his enemy. When Republic forces finally freed him from Maelstrom Prison in 3642 BBY, the man they saved was not the same hero who had left Coruscant 3 centuries earlier to face an unknown threat. The trauma had changed him in basic ways that no one could have predicted. The Revan who came out of prison was both more and less than the man who had entered it. His power had grown during his time there, but so had his pain and anger. The hero who had once chosen love over power, light over darkness, was about to make choices that would shake the galaxy to its core. But this was only the beginning of Revan's final change, and the worst was yet to come for both him and everyone he had once fought to protect. The Fractured Mind. After 3 centuries of torture, Revan's mind had finally broken under the pressure, and when Republic forces freed him from the Emperor's prison, they found a man consumed by a single thought: destroying the Sith Emperor at any cost. Revan took control of the Foundry, an ancient Rakatan space station capable of building endless armies of war droids with incredible speed and efficiency. His plan was terrifyingly simple: build an army of killer droids programmed to exterminate anyone who served the Emperor and carried his dark side signature. It didn't matter that this would mean genocide for billions of innocent people throughout the Sith Empire who had done nothing wrong. In Revan's broken mind, they were all guilty by blood alone. He placed his old companion HK-47 in command of the droid army, and the killer droid's programming was perfectly suited to this new mission of mass murder. HK-47 was delighted to return to his killing protocols on such a massive scale that would make his previous work seem small. When an Imperial strike team finally reached Revan in the heart of the Foundry, they found a broken man who had become everything he once fought against. The former savior of the galaxy was now willing to commit genocide in the name of the greater good. Revan declared that the Emperor must die, and everything else came second to that goal as he fought the strike team with powers fueled by 3 centuries of hatred and pain. The strike team beat him after a long and brutal battle, but Revan's story didn't end with his apparent death on the cold metal floors of the Foundry. After his defeat, the torture he had lived through had literally split his spirit in 2 like a cracked mirror. Part of him, the wise, caring Jedi, became one with the Force and found peace at last. But the other part, driven by hatred and obsessed with destroying the Emperor, held on to life and refused to pass on to whatever came next. This dark piece of Revan's soul took control of his body, which was kept alive by hatred and dark side power that flowed through him like poison. Gathering followers who worshipped him as a prophet who could save them from the Emperor's rule, the Dark Revan began planning complicated schemes to force the Emperor to take physical form so he could be destroyed forever. He founded the Order of Revan, converting both Republic and Imperial agents to his cause with promises of power and revenge. But this dark version of Revan was only a shadow of the man who had once saved the galaxy, driven by pain and hatred rather than love and hope. His plans would ultimately fail, but not before causing incredible damage to both the Republic and Empire that he had once fought to protect. The hero who had once chosen redemption over revenge, who had saved Bastila from the dark side through love, was now trapped in a cycle of hatred that seemed impossible to break. But somewhere in the Force, the light side of Revan waited, hoping that somehow his other half could find peace before it was too late. The Final Redemption. The Dark Revan's plans ultimately led him to Yavin 4, where the Sith Emperor's spirit had gone to hide and recover from his recent defeat. In the ancient temples of that jungle moon, Revan planned to perform a ritual that would force the Emperor into physical form, making him weak enough to kill permanently. When Republic and Imperial forces joined together to stop him, the Dark Revan made his final stand in the Temple of Sacrifice. There, he was faced not only by his enemies, but by his own light side, appearing as a Force spirit to beg his fallen half to stop this madness. The light side spirit told his dark half that hatred had consumed his wisdom and compassion. The fight was as much about ideas as it was about lightsabers and force powers. The light side spirit argued for balance and saving people, while the dark side piece insisted that any sacrifice was justified to stop the Emperor's evil. The Dark Revan was shocked to realize that his plans had actually given the Emperor exactly what he needed to become strong again. Everything the Dark Revan had done had only made things worse. The two halves of his spirit, light and dark, wisdom and power, came together once more, becoming whole for the first time in centuries. In his final moments, Revan spoke of the Force's need for balance, finally at peace after centuries of suffering. He warned the gathered heroes to remain vigilant against the Emperor's return, then faded into the Force. Years later, when the Emperor made his final attempt at ultimate power, Revan's spirit appeared alongside all those murdered by the ancient Sith. Together, they accomplished what the living Revan never could: the complete destruction of the Emperor's essence. Only then did Revan truly become one with the Force as one of the most powerful ancient Sith Lords to ever live. If you want to learn more about the Ancients and why they absolutely despised Darth Vader, check out this video next.